Hey guys, Eric Cogorno here with a video today to really help your ball striking. We're talking about the best way to start your downswing. And here with me to my left, Mr. Brendan Kennedy. We're at Alaqua Lakes here in Florida. A little chilly in the morning here, but Brendan was kind enough to have us out. If you don't know who Brendan is, I've been following Brendan online for probably a decade or so. The guy's got one of the best golf swings on the planet. Maybe he'll hit some today if we're lucky, maybe he won't. And Brendan's a guy that I've watched from afar for a long period of time and both admired his golf swing and a lot of the players he works with. He's been around the block with some of the best coaches in the world for a long time. I'm not gonna say how old he is or anything, but he's been with some of the best.
I'm old.
Yeah, he's had some experience from the best guys. So we're in for a treat for this next series of videos. Brendan, I was watching some of your videos, and thank you for having us out here. We appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
And I was watching some of the videos, and this video in particular, we got this pole set up in front of us, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw you practicing with your own swing, and then I think I saw this within a lesson or two of yours, that this station that I saw you using that could really help basically how my body works, right? My pivot pieces, to help assist with solidness of contact and a lot of the other benefits that we'll get of hitting the ball higher, farther, etc. So if you could kind of start us off with why do we have this set up and how are we going to use this, in our drill here today?
Absolutely. Switch places.
Yeah, hop on in.
So basically this is designed to help someone develop a better pivot motion and body awareness. And I have this set up in a way where it is splitting me right down the middle of my body, the median line of the body. So I'm monitoring the position of my head at address, the center of my shoulders, which I consider to be the hub of the swing, and then the center of the pelvis. I've also got a stick on the ground here, so it serves a dual purpose. Now, ball position is going to be variable, but these center lines, I think, are a constant. Yeah. So what I use this for, I encourage my students as they make a backstroke to keep the hub or their head about as steady as they can, and whatever rotation they get from the hips and shoulders. This is just so that they can see and monitor whether they're translating or moving either axis right or left of that center. Because I think the worst thing that I see among people is a tendency to move the upper or maybe both backwards, and of course now they can use this as a way of monitoring that on their own. So if the backstroke is here where I'm centered, the downstroke would be moving the pelvis or my belt buckle forward while keeping my head on that post. So this is how I prescribe putting an axis tilt into the swing. We'd want the lower axis to be ahead of the upper at impact. It's something you would see with the best players.
Sure.
And that goes a long way to helping them with their low point or get solid contact. They can hit the ball on their way to the low point, ball then turf.
Yeah, we'll take
but
that.
It basically is going to look something like this. There's impact and finish.
And release through.
They lose their balance, go forward.
Yeah.
Never backwards.
Now, when you set up, if you could take a fake setup and then stand there for 1 second. So like this from the face on, if you'd be practicing, we have that basically just splitting Brendan's body, like cut it right in half. And then Brendan, when you put this stick in, that's just kind of like center of your hip, like belt buckle type of line?
I'm putting the center of my shoulders over the center of my belt buckle or the center of my pelvis, and a line drawn between those 2 points would strike the ground in the middle of my stance.
Right in the middle.
And again, the ball position is a variable.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to prescribe setting the upper axis behind the lower at address. You see that puts me behind this center.
Yeah.
That introduces the back side of the arc. That person, if they stay here, is going to have a tough time hitting that ball consistently and solidly.
And when we're talking, when the ball's on the ground, we're hitting an iron, right? Ball first, ground second, number one thing that we need to work on.
Yes.
So for this here, if you could take your setup one more time, to make the downswing easier, what we're saying is if you can let's make a correct backswing. So Brendan's head stays more or less right on where this noodle is. Now if you could reset the setup, and let's do one where the head moves too far off away. Now, can someone go back here and move off of it and then make a big move back? Sure, right?
Yeah.
More difficult to do. And if you're watching this video and you're looking for solidness of contact, we wouldn't want to add a variable like that. It would make things more difficult.
No doubt.
Now, let's do that one more time, Brendan.
Okay.
If we go up the correct way, and then now as we go from there down to impact, so notice Brendan's head more or less is staying on this stick here. Like we talk a lot of times about the head staying in the circle, right? But his hips haven't stayed back with him. His hips have moved forward. Now he has this tilt that he mentioned, and we were talking, hey, what are the benefits of this? Well, with the hips moving forward, his handles forward, ball first, ground second, so solid contact. But if we were to do a bad way, Brendan, let's say the head and the hips both came forward. So if we do a good backswing, then everything comes forward. Now, why would I not want to do that, right? I wouldn't want to do that. I might get the low point forward, but you can see when he does that from down the line, the arms and hands shift out. You're probably going to swing too far down, too far left,
Yes,
right?
for
Pulls
sure.
and fades.
Yes, and with the driver,
Good night.
that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, short shots are going to go low, nowhere.
Absolutely. We want to launch that ball high. In addition to hitting it solidly, we want to launch it high and hopefully somewhat to the right for most golfers, the struggling golfer.
Little draw pattern.
Absolutely.
So let me hop in, Brendan.
Yeah.
Let's kind of make some pivot motion. So if I'm setting up at home and you're going to try and practice this, someone's hitting balls in their garage or swinging, they just want to find a way to have an object basically right in front of them if they can.
Absolutely.
It would be ideal.
And I think it helps along to that aspect to put a shaft or alignment stick on the ground as well, so you could just draw that line connecting the two.
I like that too, even if they had like a duct tape or something, some kind of line on the ground to utilize to have that straight line. I like that. So first things first, I'm going to set up and feel like my belt buckle and my head are on these lines, right?
Yes.
So for example, I'm not going to be over here, I'm not going to be over here.
Correct.
And then for a lot of people we see, I'm sure you see the same thing as me, when we go back during the backswing, like I don't want to just like gloss over the importance of keeping the head there, because we're talking downswing, but like gosh, I mean, that goes a long way to getting these downswing pieces correct, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
keeping the centered on the way back. So I'm here, I'm going to keep my head fairly centered when I work back. Now my issue, Brendan, because I used to get steep and then I'd have to really tilt.
Yes.
My issue is that my head would go too far back. And so when I'm feeling, because we were talking about like what side of the spectrum you're on, for me, my head normally goes back, so I get the hips forward, but my head goes back. That would be a good problem for most players to get to, potentially.
Certainly.
So because I'm too far on this head back side, I actually have to feel like my lead shoulder and my head actually go forward a little.
Yes.
Because when I do that and actually hit, that leads me to correct.
Absolutely. And again, I know you're a big proponent of filming yourself.
Yeah.
And with this little station set up, you can monitor very easily when your head's translating to the right or maybe it's moving too far forward. So yeah, you might need to feel like your head's moving down and forward, but you can actually monitor that when you play your film back. Yeah.
And then the golfer that's maybe opposite of me who's watching, if their normal pattern they see is, hey, maybe I get everything going forward, they may need to feel like, right, not only, hey, is my head staying over the stick, it might feel to them like they're maybe going back a little bit.
Sure.
So I think just to make a point like we talked about, you got to find out where you live in the zones, and you might need to feel a little bit of the opposite. But no matter where you're coming from, you're looking to get here, which is the head staying on here with the hips forward. Why don't I hit one with one of these here?
Please.
So I would like to do, Brendan, usually we say, I'd be curious on your take, maybe in another video too, like, 1 or 2 rehearsals to get a sensation or feel. So I feel like my belt buckle is getting close to my lead ankle while my head is staying back here over the stick.
Yes.
So I would get a sensation of that once or twice. And now I'm going to hit and try and accomplish the same feel there. So my head stays on the noodle while my hips and weight are pushing forward. And that was solid, I would take that. And then ultimately, go ahead, yeah.
Well,
that's a good,
Ball was teed up at this midline, roughly. Club, it was very solid strike. Club started to enter the ground here, probably bottomed out here. That also happens to be a point opposite your left shoulder at address. Now if you move that axis back, that's going to have the effect of moving this back.
Yeah.
So that was very well done.
So from like a feedback perspective, if they're practicing, they should also get feedback from that, right? Where is that divot in the ground relative to where the golf ball's at, right? And when I'm practicing outside, like I'm putting this on a tee so I can keep this in the same spot, keep that in my little minor point there, like keep this station in the same spot so you don't have to move around. But I got feedback from what it felt like. I hit it solid. I got feedback from the turf, which is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Or the first point of why my weight wants to move forward. And then I also got feedback of the ball still went high and straight. Right?
Absolutely.
And so that gives me an indication also of where my head motion is. Let me do that one more time here. And then if someone's filming themselves, you know, they might have to just get good at getting the setup pieces first, or get good at getting, you know, stay centered on the way back, and then start to feel that motion. Now let's do that one more time. Those demonstrations look pretty good.
Really good.
A++.
Yes.
All right, so let's feel the same thing here. Yeah, and there's another
Very
solid
nice.
strike that I would take.
The other point you might emphasize here or point out is it's always good to practice with references. A lot of people come out and they just have nothing on the ground, so there's no, the word is proprioception, or you're not developing that sense of where you are in this space. So you build a little station like this, and there's no shame in hitting off of a tee, particularly when you're working on something.
Right.
So we're in that.
Fine.
Yeah. So
yeah, and I
you've
think
got references now.
feedback, right? Feedback, man, especially
Critical.
if you're not going to use the video, even though I'm going to say that for our next 1,000, just like I did the past 1,000. If you're not going to do that, man, at minimum have some stuff set up as you go. So Brendan and I could go through probably 100 different nuances around this and probably do an hour-long video, but for the sake of this not being 60 minutes long, I think that covers the main bullet points we'd want them to have. This is how you set the station up. Those are the points of it. And then as you would be monitoring it, find where you are on that spectrum, or kind of on what side you fall on, and be willing to push in the opposite direction enough. Right?
That's
Exaggerate.
critical.
Yeah.
Spectruming.
Because we're all trying to get to somewhat the same end goal, but how you and I may get there based on our tendencies could be way different within the same drill.
Of course.
Within the same drill.
Yeah.
So the weights moving forward, primarily for the contact piece, we get some of that secondary access tilt, hitting the ball higher and farther. I love this drill. If you're going to do a couple things, especially if you're indoors during the winter time, set this up, put a little line on the ground with it, get the solid contact down. First things first. Brendan,
Absolutely.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
That was awesome. Thanks for watching today's video. Now, with all things golf swing related, if you really want to guarantee that those changes you're going to make are going to make a huge improvement, not only in the practice area, but out on the course, the best way to get good feedback for yourself is through video feedback, but not any kind of video feedback, instant video feedback. You can see as you're swinging what you're doing. That's what I do in my own game, that I'm able to make fast changes. That's what I'd recommend for you. Live View Golf is the best thing that I've found to do that. Let's go ahead and check that out. I want to talk to you today about Live View Golf. Now, you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live View is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code.